music doesn't get you going, Ian. Texas Homer here. This is IT Live, brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Ian is to my side. It's a Wednesday show, guys. So we're going to talk football, real strategy on the field, that kind of stuff. Ian has the theory of Space Force that we've talked about a couple times, right? The positions of importance that often end up one-on-one, and also add defensive tackles in there. And so we're going to see with our recruiting lately, have we actually been recruiting to the spots that make all the difference at the height of the sport? And then after that, we're going to do part 2 of stopping spread offenses. I think they covered a little bit of it on Thursday, but, we come at it from a little bit of a different angle here, a little more in depth. So I've been watching a lot of Mateer the past couple days, Ian, and paying attention to their offense. So the spread stuff is going to be more valuable because basically they're going to take everyone out of the box and then he's going to run up the gut. So we'll talk about that as well. AR, happy Wednesday to you, man. Eric, good morning, dude. All right, Ian. Let's start with recruiting to our positions. First, real recap, what's the value of the Space Force theory?
Space Force theory, and it was started as the idea that I had that there are 4 particular positions where you need elite athleticism, different caliber of athlete to win. Because those 4 positions are regularly in one-on-one battles with another guy in space where you can't use like a team concept to cover up a bad athlete or an unskilled athlete, and that the stakes of those matchups are super high. So cornerbacks and outside receivers who are in one-on-one battles all the time, and a mistake is often the difference between an explosive gain or a touchdown and an incomplete or maybe an interception. So it can go either way in a huge way. And also, if your outside receiver is so good that the corner just cannot be trusted one-on-one, most defenses have to wildly distort their structure to account for it. Conversely, if the cornerback dominates that matchup so thoroughly, it frees you up to play your safeties and your linebackers in other places and just load up on some other dimension of the offense. The second battle is left tackle versus edge. I think that one is actually quite a bit less important in college than the quarterback versus the receiver, but it's still really obvious. It's like sack and quarterback going out on a gurney versus quarterback protected, hits a bomb, right? And then I added defensive tackle, which I actually think defensive tackle is the second most important position in college football because of just the enormity of the impact. If you have a guy that can dominate a one-on-one inside, it just stymies so much of what offenses want to do. And those defensive tackles that can do it are extremely rare. So when you have them, it makes an extra big difference because you have this huge marginal advantage over everyone. And also, there's almost like a multiplier effect of how rare they are. Because when teams actually play a guy that's so dominant at defensive tackle, they're like, we don't even know what to do. We've never interacted with the human being.
Couldn't simulate this. Yeah, we couldn't simulate this.
We couldn't simulate it, exactly. So those are the 5 positions. Everyone immediately goes, Ian, how come you don't have quarterback as one of the most important positions? You are probably an imbecile. I've even had people tell me in light of this article, they're like, I'm reevaluating everything I've ever thought about you. It's possible that all along you were actually an nincompoop. And I didn't realize it until
Watch the language, dude. Imbecile, nincompoop. Come on, man.
You're
gonna call them dummy heads here shortly, dude.
The whole idea is that the whole idea of Space Force theory is that you're particularly focused on athleticism and like physical traits. Quarterback is not really about that. Like you need a baseline level of skill. I think a dual threat is a lot better than a not dual threat in the college game. But to be an effective dual threat as a college quarterback, you don't even have to be a special athlete.
Right.
Because defenses have to worry about so much that if you have any athleticism and toughness at all, you become kind of dangerous, right? It's primarily a position about decision making.
Yeah.
And it's like people are like, well, Ian Sark disagrees with you because he calls quarterback the most important position on the field. It is. He's not wrong. But the quarterback's the most important position on the field because he has to make so many decisions that have enormous ramifications, not because of like athleticism.
Yeah,
Unless,
the one-on-one concept is not
right.
there with the quarterback.
And also, when you're talking about like recruiting rankings, that's funny. When you talk about like recruiting rankings and picking out high school athletes, what makes a great college quarterback is not well captured by recruiting generally.
For sure.
Recruiting rankings, they go towards, can he throw the ball a mile? Is he really fast? Stuff like that. And they routinely miss the decision-making element. And then we routinely see the low 2 and 3 star works his way up the ladder, proves that he's an amazing decision maker and he's like accurate enough and strong-armed enough. And then he freaking dominates when he ends up on a team with talent around him. So
they also miss in the recruiting rankings. Like I've done in the past, I've changed. If I see that high school quarterback highly rated and he's never getting touched because the offensive line is so good, that's not a sign for. I actually like the quarterback having to run for his life and avoid sacks and that kind of stuff too. Because sometimes the systems are so perfect for these quarterbacks. They come up, since elementary school. And Denton, we're running high school plays young. And so it's those kind of things. They can be so systematized and that kind of stuff too. So you have to, some of the tape can be a mirage with quarterbacks as well because their system is so effective.
Especially if they're like, if you see high schools where it's like South Lake, Lake Travis, Westlake, Corner Canyon, like Salt Lake City, Mater Dei, just those same high schools every time. And it's like every year their quarterback gets recruited somewhere. Carthage, maybe more so with running backs, Katy with running backs. It's because they have like just pipelines of amazing offensive lines that set those guys up. And the reason that they always have a great quarterback is that the top quarterbacks in the country move to those schools.
Correct.
So they can play there.
Yeah.
Is that really a picture of Ian? It looks like it's from the 80s. That's my brother-in-law, actually, because I'm in my in-laws' house. So no, that's not a picture of me.
Damn, we need to see some old school Ian photos, man.
Oh man.
If y'all haven't watched Sark's interview on Third and Longhorn, I highly recommend it. I'm about halfway through it. I'm going to finish. I think I'm going to probably go on a walk after this and listen to the rest of it halfway through. Those guys have done a great job so far. They do a great job in general. But the interview is Sark so far has been really candid and you actually like learn stuff. Check it out.
I have to. Apparently, Joe was like just texting me before the show, and he's like, "Hey, you good to write about the schematic stuff from Third and Longhorn?" And then I responded, "What?"
Yeah, so you could go and check it out. All right, so that's why quarterback's not grouped into the Space Force concept. We're generally looking at one-on-one athletes that are on islands that have to fend for themselves. If they're not up to par, they're going to get exposed, and there's no one to help them. Also, we include defensive tackles. So it's kind of like break the mold a little bit. All right.
Defensive tackle is like the opposite of space.
Yeah.
Unless you flip the concept to mean the space that they occupy or their gravitational effect.
This was funny. You'll see this in the opening, but Sark was saying that he was thinking tumbleweeds and dead grass whenever they offered him the Austin job. And he had to Google Austin. He'd never been. So he said he thought it was like Lubbock. And he was kind of bummed out because he'd been in Tuscaloosa. So he said he was excited because when he Googled Austin, he could see traffic. And so as an LA guy, he was like, man, it feels like home,
Yeah,
so,
if you wanted traffic, he came to the right place.
Yeah, you came to the right place, dude. But I do like that he was kind of agonizing over that. Yeah.
Austin traffic cost me my job at HEB.
Whenever you were younger?
Yeah.
That's
amongst other things.
Dude, just from like starting school to ending school, the traffic changed even more. Like I was like right in kind of that sweet spot. I graduated in 2015. So like the secret was out about Austin, but it hadn't become like all the podcasters and all the barbecue and everything moves here, it didn't become like a mecca spot. So I was like right in that sweet spot where I got a little bit of old Austin feel, but you could the tech bros had already started to come in. It was an interesting time in Austin whenever I was there. A little bit of like foot in both worlds of Austin.
The capacity of I-35 or Mopac to become a parking lot at virtually any time of the day for any unknown reason is something that dates back to probably the 90s, I would think.
Dude, I would avoid Mopac. I learned I worked for Favor, like the food delivery, and like I was one of the first like 15 employees. It was funny. So those guys, have now like, done a bunch of series in the tech world. They're millionaires. I remember sitting on the founder's couch, 1-bedroom apartment, sketchy Austin apartment, and his cat. We're like running a business off of Google Drive. And then like a year later, those guys are millionaires. But it was really helpful because I got to learn the city. And at that point, it was all the trendy tech people using it because it was a new technology. So I got to learn like, where are the cool apartments downtown? Where's the good food? How to avoid Mopac, all that stuff. If you move to Austin and don't know what's up, get a job delivering food because you learn the city really well. You also learn where every cool thing is. All right, let's talk football though, Ian.
Let's do it.
So we kind of talked about the positions. Now we're going to see, is Texas doing that? And what we want to see in recruiting. So you have as the 5th most important right here, outside receiver, which at first I was like, well, what are you talking about? Because you love outside receivers, but there's a reason too about portal versus high school recruiting with this position.
Yeah, these are the most important positions to recruit out of high school. That's another thing with the quarterback, because everybody's like, dude, you just wrote an article about the state of Texas recruiting, and I never saw the words Diabell a single time. And it's like, well, I'm really excited Texas has Diabell. I've been watching more and more of him.
Dude, he's awesome.
He's awesome. Very glad he's coming to Texas.
Yeah.
I am torn on aiming for 5-star quarterbacks out of high school, but I think Texas is much more uniquely situated there than other schools. Because Texas, you tell the 5-stars, hey, come to Texas and battle for the starting job. You don't even have to pay them very much money, because if they get the starting job,
their NIL will be so good.
They can make millions upon millions as the starting quarterback at Texas.
Yep.
You become the most famous athlete in a metro area of what are we at? Like, we're closing in on 3 million now, probably. Outside receiver is my number 1 most impactful position in college football. But as we've argued about on the show a million times or on the deep dive, it's almost better to get your star outside receiver in the transfer portal.
Yeah, take your pick of the nation from proven, developed guys that have already done it. A.D. Mitchell, Golden, that kind of stuff. Because you do end up, you say it here too, right? This position is prone to being a diva. And so often you have like 1 year of them on the bench before they start getting antsy. And when you're stacking 5-stars, kids that have been the star player since they were 5, it's a tricky position to manage, I would say. So shout out like Chris Jackson. Wide receiver coach is tough when you got a bunch of good talent in there from the high school ranks.
Sort of. Texas has all this leverage because of the portal.
Yeah.
Especially the way the Longhorns offense works, what's expected of the receivers is much more demanding. Sark is like, you will make your in break on this route at this depth, and you will do it that way every time. It's not as loosey-goosey as like some spread offense where it's like,
for sure, get open.
We're going to scheme you into space and you get open. Sark is much more demanding. And that, as I mentioned somebody else made this point on Inside Texas once, and I've been kind of running with it because I think it's such a good point. If you're like first of all, as we said, there's an enormous number of 3 and low 4-star receivers that go out all over the country, and then a bunch of those hit. This is always the thing in the Big 12 would be like, how come Kansas, how come Oklahoma State, how come Texas Tech has better wide receivers than we do? And the answer would actually usually change every year. It'd be like, this year it's like, of course, Baylor has the best receiver in the Big 12. Oh, of course, it's Oklahoma State, not us. It's never us.
Yeah.
But it's because there's so many of those dudes, and they go out there, and some of them hit big. And now in the era of the transfer portal, you kind of just might as well wait and see which ones that do that.
Yeah.
And go steal them. And then when you get them and they come to Austin, they're usually coming to Austin because they're like, I just had a great freshman, sophomore, junior year. I have a chance at the NFL, but I could get into the first or second round if I can work with Sark and Chris Jackson and learn to do things the way the NFL wants. And then not only are they coming in to do that, so you're getting like established, proven guy, but you're also kind of selecting for guys that are hungry to learn the very things you need them to learn, as opposed to the 5-star freshman that comes and is like, I got a private coach, I'm good. Just give me the ball and get out of my way.
Right. Yeah. And that, 100%. And so I agree with you, especially in our situation. But Golden's a great example. AD, you come into a pro system. And like you said, Sark expects you to run this route at this speed and be here at this time. And Sark, I would say wide receiver is the position he's hardest on. So it's like, he doesn't rotate a lot. He really has to trust you. If you start making too many mistakes, he'll pull you. Like, he's really tough on his wide receivers. And he's not playing around with it. So, I think that's interesting, but you're right. It's the weakest here because you could, especially at Texas position, you can portal these guys and select from a nationwide proving ground opposed to high school traits and then making them potentially wait 2 years or something like that. And then you can have some annoyances from them as well. Fourth most important, edge. Also surprising, right? But Ian has a point here that college is different than the NFL in this regard.
Yeah, I think I have edge as like the lowest of the Space Force positions, and then consequently one of the lower ones to aim for out of high school. I just find that with modern blitz packages and the relative quality of college offensive lines, you can get away with a pretty good edge, or you're almost better with like a bunch of pretty good guys than trying to find the uber elite guy.
For sure.
Now, Texas next year is going to have one of the most elite edge players we've ever seen, Colin Simmons. And this is the perfectly wrong time for me to make this point, because Colin Simmons might be about to do some things that make everyone say, that's what you want, that's what you need. If you're not aiming for that, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
But he could do that and just be the exception to the rule, because there's not a lot of Colin Simmonses out there. I remember when Ohio State had who was that dude they had that everyone thought was just impossible? It was like 4 years ago. Not the Bosa's, but the other dude.
Chat, hook us up.
Chase Young. They had Chase Young, and everyone was like, some people were like, you may as well not even try against Ohio State, because this dude is just going to eat you alive. And then they went up against Clemson running a hurry up, no huddle spread, and he did a lot of nothing. He might have been, I think he was actually nowhere near as talented as Colin Simmons. We'll find out. But what point was I making, Connor? That was very tangential.
That you can have this star edge, but they can be neutralized by a system or by a double team or whatever. And so it's actually better to have several guys that are very competent versus one guy that you can scheme around or just get the ball out of your hands quickly with.
PK has also gotten a lot of guys drafted that didn't even end up doing that much in the NFL. He's done a lot with like having decent sized kind of tweener linebackers and just putting them on the edge and setting them up to go feast on teams. And then he's had other guys that were legitimately great and they played great in the NFL.
So why does the NFL value them so much if they can be kind of neutralized in college more often?
Because in college, I'm glad you asked that. Thank you for setting me up to make that very important point. In the NFL, teams will actually have their quarterback drop back and try to read the field and make decisions. And NFL coverages will also force the quarterback to hold the ball longer. The key number, I read about this on my Substack once, americaswargame.substack.com. The key number is usually about 3 seconds. Todd Orlando actually even said that once, because when you would watch like 2019 Texas, for example, you'd be like, these blitzes are terrible. They never get home. We always get torched. But if you watched them, the pass rush was doing great. And they would always get there at about 3 seconds, but the ball would be gone every time. And in college football, it's just really easy to avoid asking your quarterback to hold the ball for longer than 3 seconds on the majority of his plays. You're taking a lot of predetermined shots. You're throwing on RPOs. You're throwing perimeter screens and quick game stuff.
Okay, you're spot throwing.
Or you're throwing on play action and you ask him to hold the ball for more than 3 seconds, but you block with like 7 or 8 guys or 9 guys to buy him time. So the edge is just it's not the same. Whereas in the NFL, edge becomes essential because
they agree to play that style of ball.
You agree to meet you on those terms where the quarterback will have to hold the ball.
Cool. All right. Before we keep going, guys, let's hear a word from Academy Sports and Outdoors. In honor of your service and support for our country, Academy Sports and Outdoors is offering military and first responders 10% off your purchase, both in your local Academy Sports and Outdoors store and online all the way through July 4th. Exclusions do apply. Visit academy.com/discount for details. Okay. Cornerback. The one you most often associate with the term on the island. You have at the third most important. Why is that?
I think you can find corners in the portal. It's actually not super hard even to find good ones, although they obviously do command a lot of attention and competitive bids, right? But it seems like the best teams usually make it a point to keep their roster stocked with those guys. You need an elite athlete. You need him at a size and at specs that are actually not as uncommon as, say, a defensive tackle or an edge. But then the difficult selection is that a lot of the guys that would be amazing corners have no interest in being amazing corners.
Correct.
They want to play offense.
Correct.
Just like all of us growing up.
Yeah, they want to catch the touchdowns.
You want to catch the touchdowns. Yeah, you don't want to. It's a very particular mental type to be like obsessed with denying other people. It's a little sociopathic, maybe.
Well, it's like the Jalen Lott thing, right? He's likely going to go to USC so he can play receiver for them. Unfortunately, won't go to us. In my opinion, Jalen Lott is a first-round cornerback, but he wants to play that. Jermaine Bishop, right? Someone who we got here who could absolutely play corner, but will likely end up starting off on wide receiver for us.
I thought he was going to play corner.
No, I think he's going to start wide receiver. So that's where it's going to be kind of tricky. So you have these kind of five. I would love Jermaine Bishop at corner, dude. To me, it's like wide receivers too. You're going to probably disagree. It kind of goes against some points here, but wide receiver, maybe not in Sarks, can be pretty schemy too. So can corner, but man, I just think those guys that can play that wide receiver position, when they do go to corner, they just become so much more impactful over there. And so that's exciting part. How do you think Texas is recruiting that spot? We have Hayward Howard Jr. with the best Southern name ever.
If Bishop is not in there and they're losing on Lott to go play offense somewhere else, then I'd say Texas has more work to do here than I thought they did.
Well, we do. We have like Samari Matthews announcement coming up. We have a couple options there at corner.
Texas usually it's not been very many years that we've covered Texas or that I've covered Texas that this has been a major issue. The state of Texas produces defensive backs at a different level because the state is so spready on offense that a lot of teams actually do play good athletes at corner in Texas and in the high schools, and kids actually learn how to do it at a higher level than they used to. But like Georgia, Alabama, I think Nick Saban said this when he's like the first year, I guess that was last year, when he pivoted to doing commentary. He was like, it's a big differentiator when you have two cornerbacks that can challenge routes up and down the field. You kind of need that in the playoffs. And that's like a huge thing when you get to the playoffs and you have like a normal college offense and all of a sudden you're playing a team where they're not like terrified of your receiver and they're not giving you anything easy. And when you go to the second guy, he's also covered by potentially a future bro when you're playing like Georgia or whatever, or Notre Dame last year.
That turns into like an insta check down at that point by the quarterback's reads.
Yeah, if your quarterback is used to playing only on easy mode and never beating someone with a good, accurate ball, or your receiver is not used to being challenged like that, it just your offense just takes just a precipitous drop off in efficiency.
Yeah. Well, on the value of a corner, just schematically, even one lockdown corner, you can do a lot with your defensive coverages where you know, like, look, this guy's manned up. We're really playing our scheme with everyone else. You'll see that with defensive coaches all the time. Like, man, if you got a good corner over here, man, you can start shifting things around and having a lot of fun because you don't have to worry about them. So that's the value too. Is it's not just their athleticism; it's the schematic things you can do when you know at least one of your corners can lock somebody down.
Yeah, it also frees up different player types. Like your safety, that's probably not good if he's isolated, but he's good in support. Is much easier to use, has bigger chance for impact. Your nickel, who's more of like a safety or a small linebacker, you can get away with that more easily. If you need to play Harold Perkins out there because he won't learn any other positions, then having lockdown cornerbacks becomes essential.
Yeah. All right, let's talk offensive tackle.
So I put this one over corner, not because I think offensive tackle is more important than corner, but because the body types are more rare.
Okay.
And if you don't get them out of high school, it's a lot harder to find them in the transfer portal. Although Ohio State is about to go on a 3-year run.
Yeah, they took the guy from Rice again, right?
Yeah, he looks up for it, I think.
Yeah, Ohio State's the only one that seems to treat them like wide receivers, So they're just like, whenever the year's beginning, they tell their scouting department they find 5 of them around the country, and they don't even have to be at traditional schools, power schools, and they get it done. But we're talking kind of overall offensive tackles. The ones you want are hard to find, and if you do find them, generally you're going to pay a pretty penny to far over market generally. So landing them and developing them is really important, and Texas is in pursuit for that. We want tackles this cycle. So like a Zayden Crimpin, John Turntine, Felix Ojo, there's been a really concerted push for our recruiting this year to make sure we're getting tackles because we don't have a lot of tackle depth. We have good, interior play, but we definitely need to shore up the offensive tackle, and we're doing that from the high school ranks.
Sark and Flood 100% seem to be behind Space Force, at least as far as offensive line. Because they often, like, a given class will have, like, aside from that first class where they took, like, every good offensive lineman in the state.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was awesome. Since then, it's usually been, like, your big money tackle.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, 3 to 5 low 4-star, high 3-star guys with huge frames. And just, like, get them in the system.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's true. Yeah, they get their 5-star tackle. Last year, it was supposed to be Fasusi, but Fasusi stayed strong to the Oklahoma Sooners. But they've tried it every year. Like get your headline tackle, and then have your guys that are on a 3-year developmental curve as well on the interior. But also, it's like you're talking about. This is a rare body style. It's a rare body style and a rare skill set combined. That's like to have the power to stop the bull rush, the athleticism to stop an edge who are as close to a basketball player's athleticism as we have in the sport, sitting around 6'4", 250. They're going up against really special athletes on top of that. So it's rare size mixed with rare athleticism to have this position. But I agree. You want to do it out of the high school ranks if you can.
Also, for everybody, I think people miss on this a lot. People think the ideal offensive tackle is like extremely tall and huge. Not necessarily. The white ones usually look like that. We white guys, our wingspan usually matches exactly to our height. We don't have extra arm length, which is detrimental in a lot of sports. But the ideal offensive tackle is actually like thick-based, wide butt, to absorb contact and not be easy to run through, long arms to fend people off, and then super quick feet to stay in front of people. And then, you got to have the mindset for it too. So the tall guys, they have the length, and because they're so tall and big, sometimes they have the base and strength too. But someone like Kelvin Banks, and this is what drove me so mad about Kelvin Banks and all the detraction he got because he was only 6'4" or whatever. Being 6'4" with a wide base and long arms is ideal. There's zero value in being 6'7".
You get out leverage when you're that tall, man. These guys can get under.
Gravity goes up.
Yeah.
You're probably, depending on your body
proportions. Yeah.
Proportions. Yeah. You don't want to be, the only reason you want to be tall is so that you have length. If you have length, you don't need to be tall. I swear, sometimes these people.
Yeah, the draft Twitter, they're just going on. But you're right. They're mistaking that because they're like, well, he's got to be tall. Well, the reason we want them to be tall is because that normally comes with longer arms. But if they have the longer arms, you're good. And we talk about it too sometimes with like defensive line noses and stuff. We're like, we want 6'6". It's like, man, if you can beat Byron Murphy and get under people's chins, that's way cooler. That's way more. Yeah, exactly.
That's what people missed on Puna Ford.
Yeah, if you can just bulldog people, but you don't have to naturally be big. And then same with my gripe with tight ends. It's like I don't care about 6'7" tight ends, man. Like if they're gonna block a bunch, that's not ideal. And also like the insane arm length ends up normally caving in their chests. So tight end's also one that annoys me with kind of like the de facto, they need to be this size. I generally think they don't. So,
yeah.
All right.
They also on that, those 6'6" tight ends or defensive tackles or those positions where you need to play low. Sometimes those 6'6" dudes hate it. And like you get the 6'5" defensive tackle and you're like, this guy is a freak. And then all you hear for the next 3 or 4 off seasons is needs to work on pad level.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. And so, yeah, there's a lot of this just copycat knowledge of what your body type needs to be at certain positions that isn't necessarily true. Or they're mistaking the forest for the trees, like height and arm length. All right.
In Texas, by the way, they have a 6'8" dude, Max Wright.
Yeah.
Tackle. And on board, they're trying to get more. I saw Max Wright. I went to like one recruiting thing last year to help Charlie out, and I met Max Wright. He's a huge person. I was very encouraged on his film by how well he bends his knees and plays with good pad level. So I think he's a good, very good prospect for it.
Yeah, and he's on a longer curve too. So that also helped let him cook. But yeah, he's a good player out of Melissa, right?
Yeah, Melissa, man, they are loaded with offensive.
Yeah, they've been putting guys out, man. All right.
People move there to play offensive line, I think. I don't know why. Maybe they have a really good coach or something.
And then number 1, defensive tackle. Texas has been all through the Southeast trying to make this happen. We have 3 out of 4 committed with a 4th likely coming soon. So Kenny Baker is fighting hard to make up for the holes in the roster that Bo Davis left.
Yeah. It's insane. They're doing the same thing that Blood did that one year where they took Banks and Williams and all the other guys that are like about to start or just went to the NFL.
And then took also 9 million portal guys. So it's like, I mean, it's crazy to have. We're going to have a class of 4 DTs, the portal guys. We're betting horses here. Whoever rises, thank you. Whoever doesn't, next school most likely, right?
We're going to see an enormous exodus of defensive tackles from Texas next offseason.
Yeah, next offseason, yeah.
Either to the NFL or to the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Didn't work out, hit the bricks, or worked out great. Congrats on your signing bonus.
Yeah, exactly. So why is this the most important for recruiting?
Yeah, well, we kind of went into it, but it's a rare athlete. Bill Parcells used to call this planet theory, because it had some inspiration for Space Force theory. And he was like, Planet Theory, you need to draft huge people, especially like defensive tackle, because the number of people on the planet that are actually athletic and 300 plus pounds is very rare.
Yeah.
So when you can find them, you get them and you put them on your team. And that's basically it. We just saw in the transfer portal. I think Texas did a pretty good job, actually. I'm not super worried about defensive tackle for Texas next year.
Same here.
But it was touch and go, man. There were times in the offseason where it was like, are they going to have a two deep that can even play?
Yeah, it's going to be at that point, it's like, man, that's a potential why we won't get to where we're going reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
they took everyone out of the portal. Some of those are going to, like Watson, January, I feel really good about. We still think Brevard and Shaw are going to show us something.
I think Brevard is the most sure thing in the whole room.
Cool.
I don't know if he's going to be like amazing, but he was pretty good at Purdue. It's like he's going to be, if he was pretty good in the Big Ten, he's going to be pretty good at Texas.
It's weird how Purdue has all these players and can't win anything. Like they just like get rated by everyone. Like there wasn't a lack of like talent there, you know. It was just for whatever reason. Hey, did you watch? Because Card was at Purdue, right?
Yeah.
Did you watch it? I didn't watch him much post leaving Texas. I didn't watch Purdue a lot. Did you watch him at all?
No, I was afraid to. It's a very painful memory.
I know. I like Card, dude. He was a cool guy. Chat, let us know if you watched Purdue and Card, how that went. I know it didn't go good. They didn't win a lot, but that one's a bummer to me, man. Card's a bummer to me. How that all went down. So we'll see. You ready to continue on, Ian? Talk a little bit of stopping the spread, dude?
Anything to avoid talking about Hudson Card.
Okay, sounds good, man. I didn't know it cut so deep. Before we keep going, guys, let's hear a word from David McClellan.
I'm just going to say, guys, you probably need a fiduciary financial advisor. And I've got the guy for you. His name is David McClellan with Forum Financial. He works broadly and deeply with his clients as a financial life coach. And he should know something about coaching because he won several national championships as a swimmer for the University of Texas. He specializes in financial planning and has contributed numerous articles to Kipling on the topic of retirement tax bombs. So contact David today to be your fiduciary financial planner and schedule a 1-hour consultation to assess your financial situations. The free consultation is available, so just give him a call. The number is 312-933-8823. That's 312-933-8823. His email is also in the description below.
We're back. All right. We did some spread last week, part 1. Now we're going to talk part 2 of defending the spread. So Mississippi State will play this style. Oklahoma will play this style. Maybe Ohio State takes some ideas from this and plays this style. When we're talking spread, we're talking about spreading out your wide receivers. So say it's 11 personnel, meaning one tight end, right? One tight end is in the slot. Your other receivers are out. You have a quarterback and a running back. They're taking players out of the box. And if that quarterback can run, that's when it becomes supercharged because now there's not as many defenders to stop him. If you go watch Texas Tech versus Washington State last year and watch Mateer, see what that offense will do. Mateer couldn't pass to save his life. He was a running back all game, but they still were able to handle Texas Tech purely by Mateer just taking off. And that's the style you got to be worried about. They'll do the draws in the red zone, which Texas has been susceptible to. This play style has kind of been, if you get most frustrated with PK, it's kind of been against this style. Doesn't mean everything's vertical. When we think spread, we think air raid, we think everything is shots and fades. It's not. We're talking about a team that is looking at individual matchups in their wide receivers and tight ends, picking their favorite one, and then just completing shorter stuff. And then if you don't respect the quarterback ability to run, then he's going to gut you up the middle for 15 type of thing.
Yeah. I've forgotten that Mateer played Texas Tech. I haven't watched that one yet.
Go watch it. I got positive feelings. He did. He can, like, he's not setting his feet, dude. Like, everything is like, he has the 3-step drop and the hitch. It's there. He still wants to pitter pat because their running is such an integral part of his game. So
he's also used to running for his life.
Correct. And he just didn't really play quarterback well. It was kind of a Sam Levitt performance, right? Whereas like a lot of heart running, but as far as like the NFL wouldn't watch that tape and be excited. So go watch that game. And then I've been watching some more. He gets better throughout the season, but he won that with his legs. Anytime, here's the thing on Arbuckle. We're talking about spreading you out. They spread you out so obviously. I think he hit the field receiver one time all game. So you can almost just X out the far side of the field. He has the arm strength to throw it. He's not a weak quarterback. They just don't really throw it. So that's almost done. You could put your number 2 cornerback on him and be fine because they're just systematically not going to hit it. But what?
You know what I think he is? You tell me what you think of this.
Okay.
Poor man's Johnny Manziel.
Sure. He's not as like twirly in the backfield, like not as acrobatic in his escapes, but his effect is similar.
I noticed like his first step is amazing. And you're like, whoa. And then like second and third, it's like, there's no more gears.
Well, did you watch?
He's in first gear. He's moving. And if he's in second or third gear, he's getting run down.
Well, watch versus Boise State.
I did.
Okay, they blitzed his face off, and it wasn't it. He's not the same there. Most quarterbacks aren't, but he has this real problem with wanting to run all the time. So to me, it's like you're facing more of a Talon Green style of quarterback when you're doing that. So he'll take his first step. If the read's not there in a simplified offense, he's going to start running around. Well, great. If you send 3 guys at him, there's nowhere to run. Texas has that ability. So he can get a little flustered. And then occasionally he's not bad at throwing picks, but he throws some WTF picks, like right to guys, forcing a post with a safety right over top. He does some panicky stuff as well. So we'll see. He's a year older. He's more in the system. I don't doubt his toughness, but he can get a little rattled whenever you turn the heat up too, because he's used to backfooting you, right? He's going to make you have to think. He's going to bring the fight to you. He's going to juke you. If you bring the fight to him, it's a little bit of a different thing.
With Boise, it seemed like they blitzed fast people, like linebackers and defensive backs. And then he tried to make his move, and then they would run him down a lot. That's actually how LSU beat Johnny Manziel. Is they played their
and you have to blitz up the middle, right? Because he's not a rollout.
No, you don't have to.
No, I'll tell you, he's not a rollout and continue running guy like a lot of like a Jalen Daniels, right? That's the Kansas quarterback, right? Jaden or Jalen, one of those.
Yeah.
He would roll out, half roll out, and then to continue. He does that sometimes, but generally they're doing a ton of like counter follow, midline option. Like he's hitting you in the A and the B gaps and hitting you right up the gut. So if you're able to blitz or control the interior of the line, he also struggles more. And then you could have Colin Simmons or Anthony Hill hanging out outside if he does escape, but bring the pressure directly at him. And it's a different thing.
Well, that's great anytime. But I'm just saying, if you get like a nickel into the backfield, he has tendency to just get caught because he's great if he can because like I said, his first step is awesome. So he gets like a defensive lineman running at him. He does his one move and he's gone.
Yeah.
But if the guy that's chasing him has change of direction and can survive that and still stay on him, then he folds. So I think inside or outside, if you can get fast people into the backfield, you can do a lot of damage.
Yeah, I mean, Boise State showed it. And I thought that was interesting because, he brings it to you. If you flip the script on him, it's a little bit different. He'll throw some strange interceptions, and it's hero ball. And it doesn't mean that he can't have the game of his life and totally cook you. Like he didn't cook him. There was no passing really occurring. He was just running all over him. But I feel better about facing Mateer watching his full games than I did watching the truncated versions of his games. So yeah, that's been the difference. How will Mateer hold up with OU's offensive line?
It's a good question. I mean, it's basically the real question here is how good will OU's offensive line be? Which is, I would say, kind of unclear right now. Probably not that great, but I don't know if I want to bet on Bedenbow having just a terrible offensive line 2 years in a row. So we'll see. He could be significantly better with another year. I think probably a lot of the things you're noting are going to be pretty ingrained as habits.
Well, his running is not tied to pressure. His running is tied to the first read not being open.
Yeah.
So even if the offensive line, they can block, it doesn't matter if the edge is in his face or not. It's tied to the scheme. So if it's not there, he starts pitter-patting, moving the pocket. So he can have perfect protection. He's going to start moving around. It's just his natural play style. So, of course, if you have a bad offensive line, that's going to suck. But even if he has a good one, he's still just going to try to run from that position of a good offensive line.
I think there's a chance that his style gets him into huge trouble very quickly next year, and he just gets injured pretty early in the year. He's used to doing this against weaker opponents that don't have guys like the SEC or Michigan will have when they go against him.
Well, I mean, yeah, you look at their schedule, they were a G5 team if you look at the schedule, So they played Syracuse. Mateer didn't play that game. By the way, I watched half that game not realizing that was Mateer, not Mateer, because that quarterback is built like him. It plays like him. It's Arbuckle's system. And so it was something house or whatever. But and then halfway through, I was like, oh, wait. So luckily I did not come on here and give commentary on an individual, a non-existent Mateer. But if you watched, I mean, they were playing essentially a G5 schedule. When they did play Power 5 teams, it didn't go well. When they played a good team like Boise State, didn't go well at all. And that's a good G5 team. So we'll just have to see, man. Now, pair him with a better defense, that's a different thing too. But there was nothing about the Washington State team that was like high performing.
Well, they had Kyle Williams, that receiver. That guy was legitimately great.
Yeah.
I think if Oklahoma could have gotten him, he went to the NFL. He was drafted in like the 3rd or 4th round or something. If they could have got him, I would have felt a lot different about their season. I would have said 7 to 9 wins total. You could possibly do that.
Well, and they would house things like, so I'm always looking for a Mateer, right? I'm being hypercritical, right? This is first off a rival quarterback or a different quarterback, but it's also an OU quarterback, right? So I'm like hypercritical. And so I'm not giving him credit for much, right? Like if you throw a slant and that goes for 70, there's some positioning you can argue, good spot throw to allow him to go for 70, but I'm not giving you credit for 70 yards, And so there's a lot of that with Mateer too. That's Arbuckle's system is building in the advantages of the spread. But when Mateer has a big passing game, half of that is a screen getting housed. And that kind of stuff. Now, that still is a credit to Arbuckle's system, and that can still happen to you. It's just how much am I crediting that to the success of a Mateer?
We're on a roll here. You want to roll through these next 2 questions?
This is where it's going to get interesting because they are going to do this, and your first thought is like, okay, well, when they spread people out, do you play man?
These next 2 questions about Mateer player comps. Before we dive into the solution.
Wonder if Mateer running around will look like Sam Levitt without the throwing ability. Mateer has throwing ability. I don't want to discount. His arm is there. He can do some really cool throws. He can do some sick fades. He can hit. He'll roll out and hit sidelines. Mateer has throwing ability. His proclivity to run and play hero ball interferes with it. If you can get him to calm down, he can make the throws.
I think when I was watching Mateer, I think he's listed at 6'1", and he looks like 5'11" to me. He does not look that big. I think Sam Levitt is bigger, taller. They might weigh the same because Mateer is like pretty stockily built, which is good.
Yeah, for sure. He's built kind of running backy.
He's bigger than Dylan Gabriel, I bet. But I don't know if he's like, maybe he's like 6 foot or something. And then Sam Levitt when Sam Levitt gets into the open field and he gets into his second, third, fourth gear, he can pull away from you a little bit. Mateer does not have those extra gears. He can break out into space as well as like almost any scrambling quarterback you've seen.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like I said, it's like there's no top speed unless he was playing like hurt all year. It's possible.
And he's going to make the first guy miss. Like he has that ability. Like he's really good. He'll juke you, man. Like that's why I'm talking about sending 3 guys after him, like Boise State, because he's gonna slow down to juke, and by the time he jukes that first guy, the second guy's gonna hit him. That's kind of what you have to do. Would I say that Mateer is a less athletic Jalen Milroe?
No.
No, even though they're both quote unquote runners, there are different styles of runners, and
very different.
Milroe's like a thoroughbred too. Like his running style is just different than Mateer's. Mateer is more like in the pocket, like a boxer, like move like that and then run. Milroe could just be standing still and sprint. And then I would have to see Mateer's deep ball stats. Milroe could hit deep, man.
He was just so twitchy. Yeah. I think Mateer's got a pretty solid deep arm as well. I think it would come and go. I noticed one play against Boise or against Washington where Mateer hit like a throw down the field where I was like, he has some arm strength.
Oh, for sure. Mateer has, I don't want to discount that. He has it.
But then he took like a couple of huge hits, like huge lit up hits. And then one of his next throws, it was like, I've seen this before. Like he came nowhere close.
Mateer is when he's not trying to play hero ball, there's going to be 3 or 4 throws he makes that you're like, damn, like that was nice. But then the other time you're like, I see holes in your game, so but he's going to be a year older too. That matters. So if he can just settle down a little bit, and if he's at OU, man, theoretically, he doesn't need to shoulder that much of the offense. He will, but if he could just calm down a little bit, his arm is there. He just, for some reason, doesn't always elect to use it.
I'm struggling to come up with a good comp. I've seen guys like him out of high school in Texas all the time. And he's like just one of the better versions. Dylan Gabriel.
He's got a Little Elm, right?
I can't remember.
I think he's Little Elm.
There's some Dylan Gabriel there.
Yeah, but his run style. I'm trying to like that.
His run style is different than Gabriel.
Yeah. I don't really know. I'm trying to. I don't know. Not Jalen Milroe though.
A much thicker Johnny Manziel, poor man's Johnny Manziel.
Yeah, but Johnny, like even Johnny's like Johnny would like twirl around in the back, do all like Mateer is gonna like face you head up, juke you, and then sprint through the B gap for 20 yards. So I don't really know.
That West Virginia guy that they just had,
Green,
Garrett Green. There's some Garrett Green there. Who was that kid that Liberty had when Hugh Freeze first went there? His name was like Buckshot or something. I can't remember. You know who I'm talking about?
No.
He like went in and like wrecked Baylor when they were rebuilding with Rule, and they were like, Baylor fans were like, some of them were like, "Are we trash without Browse? Did we just become trash?" Which yes. And then some of them were like, I don't know, this kid, though, is kind of killing us.
I don't know. I don't have a good comp for him. I think he has a unique play style. I think that's why Mateer is an exciting player. And if you're just like a fan.
Calvera, I think. Remember that guy?
No. Okay. My Liberty watching has always been at an all-time low.
Wait, that might be wrong. This guy's rushing stats are terrible.
But what you're gonna notice if you're listening to the announcers, he's exciting. Mateer's going to make awesome plays. He's going to make highlights. Don't watch Mateer's highlights. You're not going to, well, you can watch them. They're fun. See what he can do at the top end, but that's not a good example of what he does all game. So watch his highlights, see what he can do, see he can make these throws, he can do these runs, but then go watch a full game to see really some of the weaknesses there. But as far as fun, like nationally, the audiences are really going to like him. OU is going to like him. And he'll frustrate you. But like I said, Anthony Hill, Colin Simmons, a ton of pass rushers, and he wants to run after that first read almost every time. All right, let's get through this article.
I got 2 more comps.
Okay, get with this.
Okay. This one's only decent. Dustin Crum, Kent State.
Okay.
I'll do it for you. A little bit Dustin Crum. A little bit the coastal kid that went to NC State.
Grayson McCall.
A little bit Grayson McCall.
A faster Pavia?
No, he's a slower Pavia. He has a similar toughness to him. He's got a better mud. Pavia can barely throw, and he's pretty accurate, but he can barely throw.
Yeah.
Especially as the season wears on. You'll see Mateer do Mahomes kind of stuff, where he's on the run and he's like El Duque Hernandez sidearm.
Yeah.
Hits a guy going out of bounds kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, he will do that. Another big leak in his game. So they do a lot of if this, then that boundary reads. So they'll have 2 guys into the boundary. If this, if the linebacker or whatever does this, then throw it to the other guy. If it's not there, they like to do a lot of boundary reads with him because as soon as it's not there, and it's not there a lot because it's in condensed space, that gives him the whole field. And so he just immediately turns around and runs to the field. So anytime you see them working stuff to the boundary, we have to be aware that we can't run off our field guys because he's just going to turn around and have all that open space to run. And it gets guys a lot. My comp for Mateer, I guess, is Mateer. I don't really have a good thing. Just go watch him, guys. He's fun. You'll enjoy it. You'll be angry that he's OU, but you guys like college football, you'll like his play style. Quick question, honest opinion. How does Caden Finley fit in the Sarks offense with him not being an elite athlete? So we're in a battle for him with Notre Dame. So Chris Jackson has made a little bit of a change at receiver, which I have appreciated. Sark style or whoever was recruiting receiver first, it was almost like we want a track guy that learns to catch. Chris Jackson is much more traditional NFL wide receiver. So he's getting guys that are maybe, not running 10-2s, but they're receivers. So they're strong. They're catching over the middle. They're big enough. I actually really, really prefer this style of wide receiver over just fast guys. So he'll fit in Sark's offense well. And we're kind of going away from what we're used to. It's like, we got to have a Worthy or a Bond. That's kind of changing under Chris Jackson. And, he coached in the NFL.
Although they got Chris Stewart, and then who's the other kid that's in the class?
I don't know why I would blank on that.
The other kid in the class ran like a 10.69 100 meter. He's very much back in that other mold of just
Cohen Brown. I don't know why I'm banking on his name. I like
something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, we're picking more traditional wide receivers that I prefer much more than a basket. Where are these like a basket? You just run them down a line, and if you hit him in the basket, he'll catch it. But if you miss the basket, he's not going to catch it. These guys are more over the middle, extend, strong, not scared of safeties style receivers. I actually prefer what Chris Jackson is doing. That was kind of my complaint with Sark. Also, you'll get these elite burners, and then we'll try to make them lead block on screens, and it's just such a losing proposition. These guys we're bringing in now all have the ability to lead block as well, and it makes sense to do so. Okay. We talked about what Mateer can do. We talked about what Arbuckle does, where he spreads you out, forces you onto one-on-ones. If you play man, you could try to do that to keep a guy in the box to try to stop Mateer from running. But when you do that, you have all your guys turning their back and they're running downfield. That also lets Mateer sneak out. So what do you do kind of matching these guys, specifically an 11 personnel tight end?
I think for Texas next year, because I don't know if Texas is going to be dominant enough at cornerback to play as much single high or man coverage, I would like to see them play quarters again.
Okay. Which is a too high structure.
Too high structure, and sub out a linebacker for a safety.
Okay. So you want to see a dime package.
I want to see a 4-1-6.
Okay. Where's that? Down here, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there are things you can do to protect your safety, box safety, dime. You can make sure that his gap is, he always has the B gap inside of him. Or you can play like sort of 3-downy and make sure he always has a C gap inside of him.
Yep.
So it's just easier to get where he needs to be in the run game. But
So
the trick is these teams feast by flexing guys out, putting your linebackers into space and conflict, and then just hitting you for easy, quick hitters, right? Or like Dylan Gabriel, you spread everybody out, you run quick hitting, like hitch routes and stick routes, and then you have a quarterback draw at the same time. So then Jalen Ford or Anthony Hill or whoever drops out, he's like, oh, I got to take away this quick, easy hitch. And then the quarterback's running down the middle of the field. And when it's somebody with like the first step quickness and change of direction of Dylan Gabriel or John Mateer, or Van Buren at Mississippi State last year, he's gone now. Your linebacker can be made to look really bad.
So what you're doing here, let's explain who we're kind of looking at here. So this is your corner, of course. This is your free safety. This is your nickel. So this could be, McDonald. This was Jalen Gilbo for us last year. You have your defensive line. So generally, LaFau plays our Will, right? Anthony Hill's our Mike in our base packages. But in this situation, you would sub out LaFau. You would keep Anthony Hill in at Will here. And that way, when you're spread out in this situation and Mateer does run, at least you have Anthony Hill with like insane closing speed to be able to get to the quarterback. And then
the bigger thing is that strong safety actually has, if you isolate him in coverage, it's not as bad as if it's the linebacker. And he's faster to like stay back and take away the easy throw, but still maybe get there in time to help against
So this would be what would be our Mike initially. He got taken out and subbed for a coverage style player. And that means here on this Y, say the Y runs the quick slant, right? He's sitting here in this window. And then if he needs to, he can fold back in here into this B gap as well. And help out. So you would have really one true linebacker in at this point. It would be Anthony Hill, a really fast linebacker, which is good. But you would take LaFau out. And then who do you like candidate wise for this sixth defensive back?
I have a list on the bottom, but I think the two best options are Michael Taft and Jelani McDonald.
Okay.
Essentially, Jelani McDonald already played this position last year because he was the big nickel. So whenever teams would play with two tight ends, he would match up with the second tight end. And so 1 minute he might be involved in the run fit, but if he was in coverage, he was denying like a bigger guy. That's basically what you want your dime to do against 11, is basically match up with this hybrid tight end, right? Mm-hmm. So if he can handle getting into the right spots in the run game, which I think he can, I think McDonald's the best guy for that. Michael Taft would be really good at it because he's already done a lot of it. I would say McDonald is probably the better option, but there's no doubt Taft could do it. Jonah Williams on paper is the ideal for this.
Mm-hmm. Just if he's ready.
We don't know if he's ready. We don't know if he can handle the mental deal of processing all that stuff close to the box. If you zoom up, though, back up to the diagram of the dime, the ideal is that strong safety in the D for the dime, which is just that whatever safety comes into play behind him. Let's say that it's McDonald is the strong safety across from the Y, and let's say Taft is the D. And then the nickel, the star is like it's whatever. It's they put Gilbo back in there. It's
I'll say, how about this? How about you have like Muhammad at corner, Kobe Black and Jalen Gilbo are still in a battle for corner. What about in dime? You have Muhammad and Black at corner, and then you put Gilbo back at nickel,
whatever.
and then
Sure.
you put McDonald. I think that would be sick.
Okay. The advantage now is if that strong safety and that dime are very similar players. So not only do you take away some of the issues you have with playing a linebacker out in space, but you can also start to bring in a lot of disguise and confusion for the offense, where maybe the strong safety plays out on the Y and man coverage, but the D drops down late into the box and the D becomes your linebacker. Maybe the strong safety drifts back into the box as a linebacker unexpectedly, and then the D drops down and replaces him in coverage on the Y. Maybe one of them blitzes and the other one replaces the other. Basically, if you have a ton of dudes that are like, you're basically just getting back. The whole idea of linebackers is that they can do a lot of different things, and it makes the offense unclear on where weak spots are going to be. You spread the field out enough, and linebackers are no longer that swing position. Safeties become that swing position. So if you stick a whole bunch of safeties on the field, you get back to the same effect, where the offense times two, really, because safeties can do more in coverage. So you put offenses in the spot where they don't really know who's actually doing what and where their weak spots are going to be. And if those safeties are going to be like blitzing, loading the box, bracketing your star receiver that you actually wanted to throw to and you were trying to get him open, you just reintroduce all this variability back into the game, which is exactly what spread offenses were trying to avoid.
So what will happen here versus Mateer is he will look to this concept. They will do if this, then that concept. It will not be there. And then Mateer is going to run right here. So this is calling that right now. He's going to run to the field side because their boundary concept's not going to be there. Okay, let's look at it real quick before we end. This is what it would look like in a trips situation.
Yeah. You have a similar kind of deal where you can drop that D down in a million different ways.
Yeah.
And they have to account for him, and then they don't really know for sure what the strong safety is going to do. If he's going to slide into the box and the free safety is going to drop down or whatever. You get all your disguise.
You can stay over the top if your corner's weak. They
Yep.
can shift the coverage, put the free safety more on top of the trips, and then bring him to the field. They have several things they can do from this.
Yep. You basically, yeah. So they might even keep Taft back there, or they could play him as the strong safety because by now McDonald knows how to do all the safety things too.
Yeah.
I think McDonald and Taft will be the keys. You want to keep those two guys against every offense you play. You want to keep those guys in positions where they can hover around the box and not get caught out in space too much. And if you can do that, I think this defense could be pretty special. But you're going to need a dime package to do that against the real spready teams.
Yeah. So the real threats there are Oklahoma, Mississippi State, maybe Ohio State takes some of these principles, but also playoffs. You don't know who you're going to face in the playoffs.
If Ohio State can do this with the Max Clare and Julian Sand,
yeah,
they're probably going to torch us.
Yeah, we'll see.
That's like the thing that they've been on. That's the thing that's held them back for the Ryan Day era. And the reason that they can never beat Michigan is that they don't have this dimension with the tight end, the 4 wide dimension. If they have it this year, then it's not going to be fun.
Yeah, it was fun in the spring game just watching Max Clare run right through the middle and just bam.
Yeah. Fun, you might say.
Yeah.
Alarming, others might say.
Fun as a fan, alarming when you're doing analysis as the opposite team.
The opponent.
Yeah, for sure. All right, chat. Thank you guys for hanging out. Ian, thank you for your time as well, man.
Yep.
This was IT Live, and it was brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Y'all have a great day. Peace.